A giant wolf emerged from the dark. Then this CANE Corso proved why he's a legend. The security camera caught it at 2:47 a.m. 2 points of light floating between the tree line and the north fence. Not low like a coyote, not nervous like a fox. These eyes sat high, chest height on a grown man, and they didn't move, just hovered there, steady as headlights on a parked truck, watching the property like it was already theirs. I didn't see the footage until morning. By then, 4 more chickens were dead. My name's Tom Segretti. I run 160 acres outside Boundary County, Idaho, timber country, where the Selkirk Mountains come down to meet flatland. That's mostly hayfields and cattle wire. We're 40 minutes from Bonner's Ferry if you don't hit elk on Route 95, which you will, eventually. 3 weeks before that footage, something had been working my property. 2 Rhode Island reds torn apart inside the coop. Not eaten, just killed. Feathers stuck to the wire mesh like wet confetti. Whatever did it reached through a gap in the hardware cloth that measured 5 inches wide. I patched the gap with sheet metal and figured that was the end of it. A week later, one of my Dorper ewes vanished from the south pasture. No blood, no wool on the fence, no drag marks, just gone, like the ground swallowed her between sundown and first light. I walked the fence line for 2 hours and found one thing, a section of wire pushed flat. Not cut, pushed, by something heavy enough to step over it like a curb. I called Fish and Game. A woman named Deborah took my report and told me someone would come out within the week. That was 11 days ago. But the dog knew before any of us. Nero, my CANE Corso, is 142 pounds of black brindle and bad attitude. I got him from a breeder in Coeur d'Alene who raised working-line Corsos for livestock protection, not show dogs. Working animals with jaws that generate 700 psi and a territorial instinct that traces back to Roman war camps. He's got a chest like a barrel, a head the size of a cinder block, and one crooked canine tooth from the time he tried to chew through a cattle gate at 8 months old. 5 years, Nero slept on the porch, southwest corner, where the overhang keeps rain off and he can see the driveway and the barn. Circle 3 times. Drop with a grunt that shakes the floorboards. Sleep until something moves that shouldn't. 3 nights before the camera caught those eyes, Nero stopped sleeping. He'd stand at the porch rail facing north, not pacing, not whining. Rigid, every muscle locked, staring at the tree line like he was reading something written in a language I couldn't see. His ears would rotate, tiny adjustments, mechanical, tracking sounds below the threshold of human hearing. I'd come out at midnight, 1 a.m., 3, same position, same direction. I'd put my hand on his back and feel the tension in his body. Not trembling. Readiness. A coiled spring held by nothing but will. He wouldn't come inside. I opened the door, called his name, put his bowl in the kitchen. He looked at me, looked at the tree line, didn't move. Some predators hunt because they're hungry. Their ribs are showing. Winter's been long, and desperation pushes them down from the high country, where humans keep easy food behind thin fences. Others hunt because the territory is theirs and everything in it belongs to them. The livestock, the land, the night itself. The morning after the footage, I walked the north fence with Nero at my heel. He moved different, head low, hackles raised, each step placed like he was crossing a minefield. 50 yards from the tree line, he stopped. I almost walked past it, a single front paw print, pressed deep into the mud beside a fence post. I crouched and put my hand next to it for scale. My palm, spread wide, fingertips to heel, barely covered it. No coyote walks on feet that size. No dog I've ever seen either. I drove the photo to Earl Pruitt at Rosie's Diner in Bonner's Ferry. Earl's 71. Retired Fish and Wildlife, 38 years in the Selkirk district. He held my phone at arm's length and didn't speak for 10 seconds. Then he told me about the wolf, untagged, no collar, first spotted on a trail camera near Medline Falls in late September. 140 pounds, northwestern gray wolf, the subspecies that came down from Alberta and rewrote the predator hierarchy of the northern Rockies. He'd moved into Colville National Forest territory and killed the pack's beta male, then a yearling female. The alpha pair fled south with 2 surviving juveniles, an entire established pack broken by one animal. He's not hungry, Tom. Your chickens, your sheep, that's not feeding, that's messaging. He's telling everything within scent range that this is his ground now. The wolf had been moving east. Trail cameras caught him 6 miles north of my property, closing. Your dog knows. Earl said. Corsos are old-world guardians. 2,000 years of breeding to recognize a territorial threat. He's not scared. He's preparing. That night at 2 a.m., Claire shook me awake. Listen. From somewhere in the timber, a quarter mile, maybe less, a howl rose that turned my blood cold. Not the yipping chorus of a pack, a single voice, deep, sustained. It filled the valley like water filling a bowl, pressing into every space, every silence, every gap between the trees. 8 seconds. Then nothing. The silence that followed was worse. I went to the window. Nero hadn't moved, head high, chest expanded. Not a sound from him. He just stood there. Morning came. I found 6 tracks along the north fence. They led from the tree line to a point 22 feet from the porch steps. 22 feet. He'd been that close. And Nero had known. Had stood between the house and whatever was out there, silent, for hours. It's coming back, Earl said when I called. And when it does, it won't just be scouting. It came back on a Tuesday, past 1 a.m. I was in the kitchen washing my hands after fixing a busted water heater. Copper flux under my nails, back knotted from 2 hours of cursing at corroded fittings. The yard was silver through the window, half moon breaking through clouds for the first time in a week, frost on the grass glinting like ground glass. The barn sat 60 yards out. Beyond it, the tree line. Nero was not on the porch. He was in the yard, halfway between the house and the barn, standing in the open. He'd moved forward, into the gap, into the space between the family and whatever was coming, without a sound. Then I heard it, a crash from the barn. Metal on metal, a gate slamming open. The sheep in the equipment shed started screaming, that high panicked bleat that sounds almost human when it bounces off concrete. Nero launched. I'd watched that dog run 1,000 times. Never like this. He covered 60 yards in a straight line, accelerating with every stride, and the sound from his throat wasn't a bark. Something older, something that belonged to arenas and battlefields and the long history of animals bred to put their bodies between death and the things they protect. I grabbed the Remington 870 from the closet, pumped around, ran. Inside the barn, moonlight striped through gaps in the siding. My eyes took 2 seconds to adjust. In those 2 seconds, the sound of 2 massive animals colliding at full speed. A wet, heavy impact, like a car accident in slow motion. Snarling. Claws scraping concrete. A yelp, short and cut off. I saw them. The wolf was bigger than I'd imagined. At the shoulder almost as tall as Nero, but leaner. Built like a distance runner where Nero was a linebacker. Dark gray coat, nearly black along the spine. Eyes that caught the moonlight and threw it back green. They were circling. Barn floor wet with rain and straw, and something darker I didn't want to name. The wolf feinted left. Darted right. Fast. Faster than anything that size should move, and hit Nero from the side. His jaws clamped onto Nero's right shoulder, just behind the joint, and bit down. Nero screamed. Not barked. Screamed. A sound I'd never heard from him in 5 years. The teeth had gone through the thick skin and muscle like it was nothing. Blood came fast, black in the moonlight, running down his chest, dripping onto concrete. I raised the shotgun. Couldn't get a clean shot. They were tangled, overlapping in my sights. Buckshot at 10 yards would hit both. Nero turned into the bite, not away from it, and brought his jaws down on the wolf's front leg. The crunch was the sound of 700 psi closing on bone. The wolf released Nero's shoulder and screamed, a sharp yip bouncing off the walls, and pulled back, left front leg hanging at an angle. Legs aren't supposed to bend. He didn't run. 3-legged, bleeding from the leg, and a gash on his muzzle. He stared at Nero with those green eyes. Not defeated. Calculating. Nero was bleeding bad. The shoulder wound was open. I could see the white flash of something under the muscle that might have been bone. His right front leg shaking. Not exhaustion. Damage. 5 feet apart. Breathing. Clouds of breath in the cold air. The wolf came again. Low. 3-legged, still fast. Hit Nero in the chest. They went down in the mud. Rolling. Jaws snapping. I lost them behind a hay bale. Ran around it. Nero was on his side. The wolf on top. Jaws locked on his flank, shaking his head the way wolves tear muscle from bone. Nero's back legs kicked at the wolf's belly. No strength in it. Eyes wide. The wolf released, lunged for the throat. Nero caught it on his jaw, clamped down on the wolf's muzzle and held. Blood ran between his teeth, into his eyes. The wolf thrashed. Nero held. The wolf broke free, stumbled back, muzzle torn. Leg useless, bleeding from 4 places. He stepped toward Nero. Nero was on his side, front legs scrambling in mud, trying to stand. Failing. His head dropped. Legs stopped. Chest heaved once, twice. Nothing. 5 seconds. That's how long Nero was still. 1. The wolf stepped closer. Broken leg hanging like an empty sleeve. Blood dripping from his muzzle onto concrete like a leaky faucet. 2. Claire screamed my name from the house. My daughter was crying. 7 years old enough to know something's wrong. 3. I froze. I had the shot and I froze. I don't have a good excuse for that. 4. The wolf lowered his head, ears flat, haunches gathering, that coiling, compressive load before the kill lunge, going for the throat, finishing it. 5. Nero's eyes snapped open. Not slowly, not the groggy flutter of an animal coming around. A switch thrown. And in those eyes, something I'd never seen in a dog and never will again. Not rage, not fear. Something past both of those. The place where an animal decides it will die here, on this ground, and nothing in the world will move it. He got up. Slow. Front legs first. Shaking, sliding. The shoulder buckling once before it held. Then the hindquarters, rising like a drunk getting off a stool. Blood ran down his side in a sheet. His flank was open. Muscle glistening. Skin hanging loose. Breathing a wet rasp. Something torn inside. The wolf stopped. I watched the calculation in those green eyes. The predator's math. Energy versus reward. Damage versus gain. The wolf looked at Nero standing on 4 shaking legs with blood pooling under his chest. Nero stepped forward. 1 step. Toward the wolf. Toward the teeth. Toward the animal that had just put him on the ground and opened his body in 3 places. Head low. Eyes locked. That crooked canine tooth caught the moonlight. He growled. Not the vibration from before. This came from his chest and filled the barn and rattled the tin siding, and I felt it in my sternum like a bass drum at close range. Not loud, deep, the kind of sound that travels through bone. The wolf stepped back. Nero stepped forward. If you're still with me right now, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Because what happens next, I still have trouble believing. And I was standing 10 feet away holding a shotgun I never fired. This wasn't a fight anymore. This was a guardian, bleeding, broken, barely standing, choosing to advance, choosing to put his body between the threat and the house where his family was screaming his name. He couldn't win. Anyone could see it. Shoulder destroyed, flank torn open. Every breath costing him something he didn't have left. He advanced anyway. Step, growl, step, each one smaller than the last, each one costing more. The blood trail behind him ran straight as a ruler, 6 feet closer to the wolf, 6 feet farther from safety. A wolf doesn't fear a stronger animal. He fears an animal that doesn't care about dying. Nero drove him out of the barn, step by step, through the door, into the yard. The moonlight hit them both. The wolf, gray and broken-legged, backing toward the fence, and the dog, black and bleeding, pressing forward with something that had nothing to do with instinct and everything to do with a choice made between falling and getting up. The wolf reached the fence, looked at Nero one more time. Not respect, not recognition, a problem he couldn't solve. He turned, squeezed under the wire, even broken, lean enough to flatten through, and ran 3-legged into the dark. The tree line swallowed him. Nero stood at the fence, legs shaking so hard I could see it from 40 yards, head dropping, not by choice, by gravity and blood loss pulling him down inch by inch. 9 more seconds. Then his front legs buckled, chest hit frozen ground, body followed with a sound like a heavy coat dropped on a floor. Silence. I carried him to the truck. 142 pounds of unconscious weight, limp and warm in a way that scared me because I knew the warmth was blood. My back screamed. My arms shook. Claire climbed in the truck bed beside him, still in her pajamas, barefoot on cold metal. "Drive," she said. Dr. Karen Hagen runs the large animal clinic on Highway 2, between Bonner's Ferry and Moyi Springs. Cattle and horses mostly. But she'd done 4 years of surgical rotations at Colorado State before deciding she preferred cow manure to academic politics. She was in the parking lot at 3:28 a.m., Carhartt jacket over a nightgown, rubber boots. "How long ago?" 20 minutes, maybe 25. "Bring him in." Under the fluorescence, Nero looked wrong, smaller. The blood on his fur was bright red now, not the black it had been in moonlight. Dr. Hagen shaved the shoulder wound and I looked away. Not squeamishness. Because seeing the inside of an animal that lets your daughter use him as a pillow is a different thing entirely. Deep puncture wounds through the deltoid, possibly into the infraspinatus. The flank laceration is long but shallower than I expected. He's lost blood. A lot of blood. She met my eyes. The next 6 hours are critical. If there's internal damage, I won't know until I'm in there. She paused. The part she didn't want to say. The shoulder alone, probable tendon damage. He may not regain full use of that leg. And the blood loss, she let it hang. He could have run, Tom. A dog that size, that fast, he could have broken contact. Why didn't he? I looked at Nero on the steel table, chest rising in shallow waves, paws twitching, dreaming maybe, or reliving. A drop of blood fell from the table edge onto concrete, the sound of a period at the end of a sentence. He could have run. Every animal on Earth is wired for self-preservation. The deepest code, the first instruction, the one that overrides everything. Nero chose to stay. Claire and I sat in the waiting room on plastic chairs. Clock on the wall had a golden retriever on it, which felt obscene. Coffee from a machine that tasted like hot water through a dirty sock. Claire's feet were bare. I went to the truck and got her boots. 2 hours later, Dr. Hagen came out. Gloves off, blood on her Carhartt. He's stable. 18 stitches external, internal sutures on the muscle wall. 2 cracked ribs on the left side. Blunt force impact. Will he make it? She pulled off her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. She looked tired in a way that went past the hour. His vitals are better than they should be, given the loss. That dog's heart is... She stopped, started over. I'll call you when he wakes up. She didn't say if. She called at 4:17 the next afternoon. I answered before the first ring finished. He's awake, and he tried to bite my tech when she changed his bandage. I'm taking that as a positive sign. He came home 4 days later, thinner, shaved patches covered in purple vet tape, the only color she had left. A 142-pound cane corso wrapped in purple bandages, riding home in the back of an F-150 with his head in a grown man's lap. I carried him to the porch, not because he couldn't walk. He could, barely, a 3-legged hobble with his right front held close, but because after 5 years of that dog standing between my family and everything in the dark, the least I could do was carry him up 3 steps. I set him in the southwest corner. He sniffed the boards, tried to circle, winced, stopped, didn't finish, lowered himself with a grunt that shook the floorboards, faced north. The stitches came out after 3 weeks. Fur grew back over the shoulder in a ridge of scar tissue, raised, hard, ropey, from behind his ear to the middle of his chest. The flank healed cleaner, but a notch in the muscle never filled in. He'd carry those marks for the rest of his life. He limped, a hitch in his stride, a favoritism of the right front that you'd only notice if you knew how he moved before. The explosive sprint was gone. He moved with a deliberateness that looked like caution but was something else, like a man who'd been in a wreck and drives careful afterward, not from fear, but because he understands the cost. Every night, same corner, same position, facing north. The wolf never came back. Earl told me a hunter found 3-legged tracks in the Selkirks heading toward the Canadian border. A trail camera near Meadowline Falls caught one last image, a gray wolf, thinner than before, moving through the frame with a front leg that didn't touch the ground, heading away. Months passed, chickens replaced, sheep back in the south pasture, fence reinforced with cattle panels and electric wire. Barn door got a new steel latch. The dent in the barn siding I left, maybe as proof, maybe as a memorial, maybe because patching it felt like erasing something that shouldn't be erased. My daughter started drawing pictures, crayon on printer paper, oversized heads, stick legs, colors that don't match reality. The house, the barn, and in front of both, every time, a big black shape with pointed ears and a crooked tooth, standing between the buildings and the dark line of trees colored in heavy green. 11 drawings on the refrigerator. In every one, the dog is facing north. I asked her once why. She looked at me like I'd asked why water is wet. Because that's his job, Dad. Yeah, that's his job. Some nights I still come out late. Midnight, 1 a.m. Idaho cold biting through my jacket. The tree line dark, the mountains darker. The only sound is wind in the Douglas fir and the creak of porch boards under my boots. Nero's there, Always. Slower getting up now. The grunt when he stands is longer. The scar catches the porch light. His leg stiffens below 20 degrees. But he stands. He faces the trees. And nothing out there has come close to this house since. Last thing I see before I kill the lights. A dog with a crooked tooth and a scar from ear to chest. Standing in the cold because he decided a long time ago that this ground is his. This family is his. And nothing crosses that yard while he's breathing. The night is quiet. The trees don't move. Nero doesn't blink.